Hi, Michel. Thanks very much for joining me on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure, Carl. It's great seeing you again after so many time.
It's been a long time, hasn't it? I know you did the Mindfactor course. You were just telling me it's, I can't believe it's 7 years ago now.
Yeah, I looked it up this afternoon. It was 2013.
Yeah, time has moved on. It was a good group in Manchester that year, wasn't it? Well, they're all good groups, but that was a good group.
Yeah, it was great fun as well.
Yeah.
I remember I got inspired to join you when you got to the Netherlands on the Lage Vuursche, remember?
Yes.
That's where we first met.
Right. Yeah.
There was a meeting for club members, and I was invited by a club member there, and I got really enthusiastic about what you were telling and what you were showing.
Yeah. The Dutch people have been very kind to me over the years. I think they seem to enjoy my sense of humour, which I don't know whether is a good reflection on them or a bad reflection.
No, you have a lot of charisma and fun while coaching. So
yeah. No, I've always tried to.
And
do that.
You're not taking yourself too seriously. That's also very good.
No, it's time to stop when you take yourself too seriously, isn't it? That's for sure. Now, Michel, for those tuning in to the Brain Booster, it was I wanted to get you on the show because of the communication that we'd had about your own teaching journey, which is really interesting. So for everybody listening, just fill them in on the details of what's got you to this point at the moment, and some of the, you kindly admitted in the email some of the challenges that you had in previous times.
Yeah, I gladly do that, Carl. Well, I've been a PGA professional for about 30 years now, and as a coach, you're always looking for the Holy Grail, right? You try to find things that work for people, try to make the game easier, try to find more consistency, and that's a roller coaster, because sometimes you find something and you think, well, that could be it. And then you go into it and you work it out. But then at the end of that journey, you have to admit that it's not bulletproof. It's still able to shoot holes into the system, into the method, which you are so proud of and so keen of teaching and showing people. And of course, as a coach, you're always enthusiastic, but the student also wants results. So sometimes the life of a golf professional can be very frustrating. And there's the recognition with the golfer, because the life of the golfer is also very frustrating because the lack of consistency. So in my years as a teaching pro, I was registered to a golf club, a private golf club, where I've been working for almost 24 years. And together with a colleague, we developed a method which was called Swingfinity. It was a philosophy based on using the force of the legs by pushing off against the ground, and then a swing would evolve, which had the symbol of an infinity sign. That's why we call it Swingfinity. Okay. But it was very hard for me as a player as well as a coach to really get consistency out of this method. So it was a deception at the end. Okay. So then in 2015, I came across a new sound, which was developed by a colleague of mine, a very, how do you call it? A very well-known player in the Netherlands. His name is Joost Steenkamer. Yeah. Maybe some of your listeners will know his name. Yeah. He's one of the few Dutch guys who qualified for the British Open, which is a major achievement, as you all know. But besides that, he was a good player also in his college years while he was staying in Hong Kong. He was playing the Asian Tour there. But he also was a very good national coach. He was concerned with the building of the talents in the Netherlands for over 12 years. So he was also related to the federation, like you have in the UK, I guess. And then I can remember the moment I was eating a a carpaccio sandwich in the city of Haarlem, which is my residence. And I came across an article, and it said MOT, which stood for Moment of Truth. And I got enlightened. And I was thinking to myself, hey, these guys are doing the same thing as I am doing, but they have the technical know-how to make the crossover to the long game, because I was only implementing it in my short game.
Right.
And I got very lucky because I used to know Joost. So I gave him a phone call and I said to him, well, Joost, I believe the two of us are doing the same thing at the same time without knowing it. So let's team up. So I teamed up, and I was fortunate enough that his colleague from the States, Kevin Michaels, was in the Netherlands at that time. He was there for about 2 weeks. So we teamed up. We met at the Kennemer, you know, the golf course in Zandvoort.
Yeah.
Very great scenery. And I presented myself to them, telling them what I thought they were doing. And they were pretty impressed because I got very close.
Right.
But not close enough.
Okay.
So what Joost and Kevin showed me there just blew my mind. From that stage on, I was like, what the have I been doing all of these years? It's like someone really shook me up.
Switched the light on.
Exactly. And I was so joyful at that moment. So I decided to join on their mission. And I certified myself as an MOT professional. But then Kevin left the country again, and Joost and I decided to organize road shows throughout the country to tell people about MOT. Carl, it was a hell.
Really, was it?
Yeah, it was. We found so much resistance, so much skepticism, so much unawareness of what we were doing. People thought we went crazy.
Right.
But I was so enthusiastic, and I immediately found results. So I was practicing this method immediately on my golf club. And that really became a hell. Because I was over enthusiastic, but not that good in communication at that stage of my life. So 2 camps existed in the club. Pro Michel, contra Michel.
Okay.
And after 4 years, after one and a half year, I had to leave the club.
Because more people were against you than for you.
Yeah, the committee really was old school. They couldn't accept that there was a new stream inside the club. So there was a bunch of members who were in favor of me, and a bunch of members who were against me, and it was not workable anymore. So I had to leave.
Right.
So that is in short the story of the pain, the
challenges,
the struggle I had to face while introducing MOT. But I kept the faith. I really believed in this method. But first I had to change the name, because MOT in Dutch is called mot.
Okay.
And mot in Dutch is argument.
Okay.
Fight.
Right.
MOT, mot.
Right.
And mot is also a different saying of must.
You have to.
So I had to, yeah, you have to. And I don't want you to do it. I just want you to practice it, to taste it.
To explore it.
So I had to change the name. And we changed it into True Groove. And it actually means 2 things.
That sounds much better, because I mean the English connotation of MOT is not brilliant either, because MOT is what you do with your car. When your car's breaking down, when it's an old car, you have to take it for an MOT.
Yeah, what is it called again in an MOT?
Yeah, it's the motor something test. Yeah,
exactly. So that's where we dropped the name MOT, and we changed it into true groove, which resembles the right true groove which you have to hit on the club face, but also the groove the club head is traveling around the body. While practicing this, I came up with a new partner who was a student of mine, and he really made it possible to get this true groove into a business-like approach.
Right.
And at this stage, we are a very nice, sustainable, growing business with more and more people who adapt the thinking and the goods, the philosophy of true groove. And in their saying, they rephrased it, they renamed it, and they call it the new way of golf. We call it Het Nieuwe Golfen.
Okay.
So in your country, it would be the new way to play, the new way to play golf.
So you've essentially, Michel, gone through a kind of an enlightenment that you've completely rethought the way that you coach the game, and then run up against some real adversity and a lot of people who didn't want to listen to a new approach, but you stuck at it. And I think that's one of the things for me that's interesting, that you had the mental resilience to stay with something that you personally believed in.
Correct, Carl. It is so logic what we're doing. So, and I really feel that golfers should know this. No one is telling them. I believe that we have made the game more complicated than it actually is. Or let's say not the game, but how to coach and how to teach and how to learn the golf swing.
What's again interesting at this point, Michel, before we go into what true groove is I was talking with somebody a couple of weeks ago, and we said that one of the few good things to come through this dreadful year that we've had with the pandemic is that golf seems to be a winner, because more people are playing golf now than they have done for a long time. But there is an important element to this, that whilst golf has been given all these new players or players coming back to the game, when things hopefully return back to normal, golf needs to keep hold of those players. And I think, you know, I've often said, up to this point in time, I think a lot of people have left the game of golf because of the way that it's been taught in the past, because it's been so difficult to learn what is essentially should be a simple movement.
Yeah, I totally agree on that, Carl. Here in the Netherlands, about 40,000 people per year quit the game of golf.
40,000 every year in the Netherlands.
40,000. And the federation keeps up appearance because 40,000 new ones come in. So per salvo, the growth in golf is relatively small. And a lot of people quit the game simply because of the fact that the ball is controlling them. And they're not controlling the ball, which is actually pretty strange, because the ball is lying still, right? It shouldn't be that hard to hit a golf ball consistently. But as you found out as a tour player, it's pretty hard. And there seems to be a little elite group which is dominating the PGA and the US Tour. There are guys and girls that are able to repeat more often the elements of impact. Because, Carl, if we all look at it as a coach, we all agree on one thing. In impact, there are mechanical laws. There's geometry of impact.
Yeah.
It's not about the style, the way you swing the club. There are a lot of players with different styles in the world. If you now look at Matthew Wolff, if you look at Jim Furyk throughout the years, he's been one of the greatest ball strikers in 30 years because he's doing something good at impact.
Yeah. But yet what we've done is we've endlessly dissected all of the movement everywhere else in the golf swing in the belief that if all of that movement conforms to certain models, that you would get impact correct. And yet for most people, the impact position is pretty poor, and because of the impact position, then shots are very erratic. So essentially, Michel, the breakthrough for you was that MOT, the moment of truth, true groove, is a much clearer understanding of what impact should look like.
Yes, definitely. We really give the golfer a blueprint of how impact should look and feel. Because if you ask an amateur golfer, a club golfer, a weekend golfer, if you ask them, if I snap my finger, could you show me how impact looks? And most of them tell or think that their impact should look the same as their address. Mm. They don't have a clue, Carl. Mm. Mm. And that's not their fault. Mm. They are innocent because they are ignorant. Mm. And that's where I, as a coach, find myself to blame. It's our task as a coach to let people feel what impact looks like. So I think this is a saying from you. This is a saying for you. I think it's pretty poetic. It's like, tell them and they'll forget. Mm. Show them, they might understand. Involve them and they will understand. Yeah. So it's the task of a coach to take the student by the hand and tell him in detail how impact should look. Mm-hmm. Because the impact studies that Joost has done, that Kevin has done, while they were playing the Asian Tour and had a lot of time off during the weekends because they missed the cut. Yeah. The only thing they did, Carl, they studied the impact position of over more than 100 major winners. Mm-hmm. And they came to an astonishing result. They found out that all these guys and girls look exactly the same at one
critical moment,
second of the swing, at impact. And I told you about Bertie Correll, right? Mm-hmm. The guy who invented DST. I visited him in the UK about 4 years ago. If you look at his site, he has a great story about how, in where he explains how impact should looks. He's talking about the line of tension. Mm. And yes, during a Pro-Am, he filmed about 400 golfers on a par 3 in the same situation. And 95% of the golfers are doing it wrong. Mm. What are they doing wrong, Carl, you think?
Well, the club will be flipping through impact. There'll be no pressure, no as Homer Kelly said in the golf machine, no sustaining the line of compression.
Exactly. 95% of amateur golfers loses control over their club face before they strike the ball. Mm. That's because impact is too fast to see it. Mm-hmm. It's too fast to feel it. And if you don't have a concept of impact, you're lost. Yeah. Because the golf swing is a very unnatural movement. Mm. The golf swing, when it's executed properly, it's contra-intuitive. Mm. It has nothing to do with a natural movement. Because the natural movement of all people is to try to make the ball airborne. So it makes it logic to flip the club face, to flip the hands, to try to get underneath the golf ball, yeah. Which is impossible because it's lying on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. The number one concept that people have is from other reference points, isn't it? A tennis shot where you may lean back to lift the ball up in the air, or ping pong, or whatever it may be. And yet, ultimately, as you say, what we're trying to do with golf is create a compression between the club between the club head and the golf ball. So just to dig a little bit deeper into this, presumably you give people an understanding of what a correct impact should look and feel like. But then do you then encourage them to actually start the golf swing from that position?
That's exactly what I do, Carl.
Okay.
So I'll show them, I'll let them feel what the impact conditions are. And it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
About 75 to 80% of the body weight should be favoring the leading leg. 45-degree opening of the hips. That's what all the good players do. If you look at impact, you see with all the great players that the left upper arm is compressed to the left chest. And the right elbow makes a connection with the body, somewhere between the rib and the hip. The perfect impact condition also involves the primary control, which is the relation between the head, the neck, and the torso. A lot of golfers have a completely different relationship. So they're actually injuring their body and they're not using mechanical advantage. But the most difficult thing, Carl, is the starting position. The traditional setup position of a golfer has no value concern to impact. As soon as the golf swing starts, the total body position changes. But the worst thing is, nothing of the impact position, of the setup position, returns into impact. Everything in the body is different. The only thing that is still the same are the clothes that people are wearing. The rest has changed. And that all within 1 second, Carl.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's...
But presumably as well, which I'm just thinking out loud here with this, that if you give people a sensation of what impact should feel like, and they begin the movement from that position, what I'm potentially thinking here is another nice byproduct of that, correct me if I'm wrong, is then they can then just swing the golf club without too much conscious thought about anything else.
That's it. That's what I loved about your podcast with Adam last week, or I listened to it last week, with the external focus. Just give the brain a task and it will execute it, right? There are so many discussions on how to take away the golf club. So the True Groove has done something fascinating. We took away the takeaway. It almost sounds like a Chinese restaurant, right? But we took away the takeaway because we start with a compressed left arm. So there's also already a connection between upper body and arm, which in a conventional golf swing only appears much later in the golf swing, in the backswing. So the only thing the new golfer has to do is he has to pivot. And we use the mechanism of an old engine, which is called the Vanco engine. Do you know that, Carl?
I've never heard that term, no.
It's invented by Dr. Felix Wankel.
Okay.
He was a Swiss engineer. It's a great principle, the Wankel engine.
Okay. Swiss engineers are usually pretty good, aren't they? Usually pretty accurate.
Yes, exactly. With the watches and things like that. But the principle of the Vanco engine is very simple. It's a rotational engine. It only rotates. It has no cylinders. It's an engine in a box, and the engine makes a very compact movement. It's very quiet, no noise.
Okay.
But the biggest advantage of a Vanco engine is the acceleration. It accelerates like hell. There was an old car in history which was called the NSU. You remember that car?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That car won Le Mans, 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Really? Yeah.
But also Mazda has been using the Vanco engine in the RX-8, and it's a highly accelerated engine.
Right.
And it has very little moving parts.
Mm.
And there's the analogy with the golf swing.
Mm.
So I'll let you start in your impact position. and referring to what you just said, there's another big, big advantage on this. It's called the propriocepsis. Are you familiar with that?
I know of the term, yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's the phenomenon of the human body to be aware where it is in time and space.
Space, yeah.
But also in relation to other objects. So it's, in a popular, more popular term, it's called the muscle memory. Mm-hmm. So if you start in a position where you will return within 1 second, you have a major advantage. You actually are playing memory with your own body. Mm. And the body remembers where it needs to return. You create a reference for your body instead of starting in a position where you will immediately be out when you start the movement and you will never return to again throughout the swing. Mm.
I'm just thinking also of other sports. I'm thinking, not that I know that much about it, but, you know, a baseball batter at bat tends to set up, and you could see them they kind of rehearse the impact position that they're going to get into when the ball is traveling at 100 miles an hour from the pitcher's hand. They kind of preset that position, don't they?
They can, of course, but they can do that only because they're training a lot. Mm. Because hitting a baseball at the speed of which these pitchers are throwing them is much harder than hitting a golf ball,
Absolutely.
which is lying still.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's why it's, yeah.
And so developing this further, so I completely understand why you would get excited about this, because, as I said, the big appeal for me is that there's you know, instead of thinking about all the other stuff in the golf swing that people get so tied up with, you're narrowing it down to one point of attention. And eliminating a lot of excess worry about how the golf swing looks in various parts of the backswing and things like that. But as you would develop this for better players, would you also then adjust the address position relative to the shot that you wanted to play? If you wanted to play a fade or a draw or anything like that?
Yeah, you can adjust it very, very easily. You adjust that. If you are a right-handed player, you adjust it with the position of the right foot. So let's say you want to play a fade. You place your right foot a little bit more forward. While doing that, you create a swing plane where the face is slightly open towards the plane you're swinging the club in.
Yeah.
So it's square to the target, so the ball will end up at the target, but it's open in relationship to the plane you're swinging it in, the path you're swinging the club in. Mm-hmm. Let's say you want to hit a draw, you do the opposite. You place your right foot for a right-handed player, you place it back, and then the face will be closed in relationship to the path. Mm-hmm. And then you play a natural draw. Mm. If you want to hit a low shot, you even exaggerate the shaft lean. So you place your hands more forward, de-lofting the golf club, and knocking more down on the ball. Mm-hmm. If you want to play a high shot, you do the opposite. You just lean a little bit more back. Okay, you get some less compression then, but you hit a higher shot.
So potentially, Michel, what this does, again, that is an appealing concept, it actually frees people up to get out onto the golf course and think far more about the shots that they're going to play as opposed to the swing.
Carl, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. You just put the ball on the floor. And what True Groove is also doing, we play every shot from the same ball position. We play it inside the left heel. Because if you get your body into an impact position, actually a kind of meridian will be formed between the clavicula, you call it the key bone, here in the shoulder.
The collarbone, yeah.
The collarbone, yes. The sternum and the left hip joint. You can actually draw an axis, a vertical axis. It's called the y-axis in math, right? Mm-hmm. And underneath the y-axis, there's this number, It's called zero. We call it the origin. So you start from your origin, you turn away from your origin just by turning right. And because you turn, you will create torsion between upper and lower body, as every golfer wants. And you just simply turn back to your origin and turn through your origin. So the only emphasis is turn, return, turn through. Turn, return, turn through. And what we also introduced into this kind of learning is the concept of deep learning. I guess you're familiar with deep learning.
Yeah.
And we took that from the talent code.
Yeah.
The great book. I would highly recommend your listeners this book.
Daniel
It's
Coyle.
written by Daniel Coyle. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And this whole talent code is about one thing: creating a
Myelination.
substance in the brain. Sorry?
The myelination of the...
The myelination.
Yeah.
That's it. And I have a great example for this myelin. It's about Sir Don Bradley. Do you know Sir Don Bradley?
Don Bradman.
Don Bradman, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the cricketer.
Yeah, the
cricketer. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. He was his time ahead. Because he was training, he was practicing deep without knowing it. Because he tore down his cricket bat, halved it, and he practiced with golf balls.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I would have shown you that on the Mindfactor course, because I've used that video for many years about Don Bradman practicing with the cricket stump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's an element of deep training. And continuing on this myelinization, what you were talking about. If you chop down the movement, if you chunk it down into little parts, and you practice the little parts in slow motion, and you repeat and repeat and repeat those elements, and you also add some overload in your training, in other words, make the training harder than the reality is, like Bradman did, the myelin is blowing through your head.
Yes.
And you really accelerate the learning process. So by starting in this position, you don't have to suffer as much as all the other golfers who are doing the conventional thing, Carl.
Why do you think initially, Michel, that you received so much opposition to this in the early days at the club that you were at? Do you think because it kind of makes a lot of the standard golf instruction redundant?
Probably. But Carl, if you do not have any understanding of how impact looks, you look funny when you start an impact, right?
Yeah.
But actually, if you really look at it, it looks, one, it looks more sexy. Two, it looks more dynamically. And three, it looks very practically. But you need to have balls to do this. So people were
reluctant to try something different.
Reluctant to try something. There was a lot of skepticism. People think that you will hit the ball less further because the backswing is shorter, but the opposite is the truth. You hit the ball further because you compress it better. You make more solid contact. And it is, you get rid of the dispersion. So it's a combination of unawareness, fear. Yes. People are afraid of alteration, of change. Change most of the time is for someone else. So it's a very delicate thing to communicate this message. But at this stage, as we speak right now, we have so many people in the Netherlands and in Belgium who are playing like a new golfer. They really start their swing from impact.
The revolution has begun.
Yeah, but revolution is made by the people, huh?
Yeah.
Not by the coaches.
Yeah, absolutely.
And 3 weeks ago, I was coaching a plus handicapper. This guy, he went crazy. He plays at the Royal Hague. It's a very good golf club. He plays in the first competition team.
Yeah, I've been to that. I remember doing a seminar at the Royal Hague. Yeah,
nice, huh? Mm. So this guy is a really good player, and he was playing the ball from in the middle of his stance. And I came up to him and I said, he said, I'm a bit inconsistent with my iron play. My woods are okay, but my iron play is a bit inconsistent. And I only transformed 2 things, Carl, in his setup. I asked him to position his left foot, his leading foot, 45 degrees into the line of the target. He made instantly by implementing these 2 elements. It was amazing.
Really. Very, very, very interesting. So where can people find out more about what you're doing, Michel, or if they're interested in looking more into impact?
Yeah, they can have a look on our website, which is still in Dutch, but the picture says more than 1,000 words. So we are working on an international thing, Carl. That's why I'm so glad that I had the chance to get invited by you to meet up. So they can have a look on www.true. How do you call it?
Hyphen.
There's a little stripe between true and groove.
Yeah.
It's a dash.
Hyphen. So it's true .groove.
Yeah. .com.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the last thing we did, Carl, that's what I'm very excited about. We teamed up with Cobra Puma Golf.
Okay.
So we have adapted the 1-length clubs. Did you already try them?
Right, I've not tried them. No.
They're amazing. And they complete the method of True Groove, because we have one setup which is the same as impact. We have one plane, one swing plane. We have one ball position, but now we also have one swing length because of the 1-length clubs.
Right.
It even takes more slack away. And it's, again, with the thought of learning things easier, you only need to learn one position towards the ball. So the flex from the hips is always the same with the irons and the hybrids.
So it sounds like a powerful combination, the True Groove and hopefully some of the Mindfactor principles. You still find those useful that we learned those years ago?
Yeah, your trigger line was lower your scores without changing your swing. That's what we do. It's also a fear of people. You ask me, do I need to change my swing? My simple answer is, if you're consistent, keep it like it is.
Yeah.
If the ball's going everywhere, you might consider changing your swing, yes. But change your impact. Change the concept of impact.
Yeah.
And that's also a question from people. Why are the pros not starting their swing from impact? And I just say, not yet. Because the convention is the convention and it will take years. That's what you always told me. They don't have enough time to change.
Right. Yeah. There's a period of time where what is it that an idea at first is ridiculed, and then it's accepted over a period of time, and then down the line it seems to be that people think that it's always been that way, but it's a long period of time. But it does make a lot of sense, Michel, and it still comes back to one of the central themes that we've talked about on this podcast, is that your body will organize movement around a clear intention. But if you don't have a clear idea of what impact looks like, it can't organize those movements, can it?
Exactly. If you don't have the concept in your brain of impact, your body will never adapt impact. Because your body is steered by your brain. So your brain needs to know what your body has to do.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, thank you ever so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested to explore some of these new ideas, but also some ideas that seem to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and if this lockdown and this craziness about COVID is past, it would be a joy for me to come over to the UK. If someone likes to invite me to demonstrate the concept, it's great. It's great fun. And that's why I'm such a happy guy, because after all this struggle, I really found my meaning, and that sounds pretty heavy. I really found my meaning in life. It's very, to contribute to people's happiness is a great gift and a super joy for me.
Well, we'll certainly, hopefully people will be interested to get you over when things get back to normal. And despite Brexit, I think we'll probably still let you in, Michel.
All right, Carl. Thank you very much.
Thank you.